Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Eli Lieberman, and I work for the Washington State Housing Finance Commission. I wanted to thank you all so much for joining us today. We have put together what we hope is a really fun new partnership between the Housing Finance Commission and Seattle City Light, and we're really excited to talk to you about it. We have sort of a short presentation that we're going to go through that should maybe only take about 20 minutes. And then we're really hoping we can have a lot of time for questions and maybe some discussion. This is the first iteration of this idea. So while we think while we're stoked on it, we're not necessarily sure it's, in its ultimate form yet. So we're definitely excited to talk about this, and as this program changes over the years, how we can better incorporate your feedback. Just a quick note, we are recording the presentation so we can load it onto our websites later on. But when we get to the discussion and question section, we will stop recording. So just recording during the presentation. We also left the unmute yourself. We've delegated the unmute yourself power down to you all. So if you do feel like just chiming in during the presentation, if you have a question you'd like answered right away, we're totally comfortable with that. But then also just keep in mind that we are reserving a lot of time at the end for questions and discussions. So with that, let's get started. So first, we're just, I'm going to give a little overview of the presentation today. So Sherry and I will talk about the organizations that we work for and a little quick deep dive into the specific programs that we each individually manage. We'll talk about the basics of this partnership and why it came about. We'll talk about the finances that we used when we determined how the funding would flow. Sherry will think I just got muted for a second.
You did, but you're back.
But I'm back. Okay, great. We'll talk about eligibility for both Seattle City Light and the Housing Finance Commission. We'll talk about what an ideal project would look like for us, and then we'll wrap it up with some next steps, and that'll leave time for questions and discussion. So first, who we are. I work for the Washington State Housing Finance Commission, and we are a quasi-state agency. So we do work for the state. We're state employees, but we're actually self-funded. So we don't receive any funds, taxpayer funds from the general fund. We sort of generate our own revenue. A lot of people know about the commission mostly as the governmental entity that allocates low-income housing tax credits, or LIHTC. And most people on this call probably know about us in that capacity. But it's actually, a lot of people are surprised to know that we do so much more than that. We have a 501c3 bond program that issues tax-exempt bonds specifically for nonprofit facilities to renovate to become more energy efficient, or to even purchase a new facility. We have a single-family division that helps first-time home buyers purchase their first home with federally secured mortgages and down payment assistance. We even have a rural farmers and rancher program that helps people across the state of Washington become farmers if they want to. And then lastly, we have all of our energy work, which plays into what we'll be discussing today, but I'll go into that on the next slide. And at this moment, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Sherry from Seattle City Light.
Yep. Hi, everyone. I am going to introduce myself really quickly. I'm Sherry Weir. I'm a Renewable Energy Program Manager at Seattle City Light. I manage our Green Up program, which I'll describe in just a second. But Seattle City Light is the public electric utility for Seattle and 7 franchise cities. So we provide electricity to City of Seattle customers, along with Burien, Tukwila, SeaTac, Lake Forest Park, Shoreline, and unincorporated King County areas like White Center and parts of Skyway. So we'll move into the next slide. So Eli, introduce your energy trust.
Great. So a core component of my job is I manage the Commission's Sustainable Energy Trust. And in its purest form, the SET, as we like to call it, is a revolving loan fund that provides below market rate loans for energy efficiency and renewable energy products across the state of Washington. We operate as a state agency outside of the city of Seattle, all across the state, but we really hope to spur the private markets to sort of get more involved in this type of lending. So we lend primarily in three spaces. One of those is to single family developers who build single family housing well above the energy code. So some people in Seattle might be familiar with Green Canopy. They're a great partner of ours, and we've helped them provide some affordable net zero homes in the Seattle area, which is really exciting. The bread and butter of our program is renovating multifamily housing and nonprofit facilities to be more energy efficient. And there we like to underwrite off of the energy savings, which is something that's slowly sort of matriculating into the private banking sector, but is something that we pride ourselves on. And that's the same with our last realm that we lend in, which is renewable energy. So that's what we're here to talk about today, solar energy, but we also have helped farmers across the state purchase biodigesters for their farms. And in the past, we even got involved with some wind energy projects. We don't do those as much anymore. But again, we're more than comfortable to underwrite off of the utility savings of a solar project. So that's kind of one of the core components of this program.
Cool. And I manage Seattle City Light's Green Up program. That's our voluntary green power program that lets our utility customers pay a little extra on their bill to purchase renewable energy. We've been in place since 2005, have about 11,000 participants right now, mostly residential. And we purchase about 100,000 megawatt hours of renewable energy a year through the program. So it's a pretty robust program. Just this past year, we hit NREL's top 10 for participation, which I was pretty happy about. We are a REC-based program. So RECs are renewable energy credits. That is kind of a separate commodity from the renewable energy itself. It acts like an incentive or a subsidy for renewable energy development. So we purchase those credits on behalf of our participants, allowing them to make the claim that they are powered by renewable energy at the participation level that they choose. So any financing that comes through the Green Up program, it comes in the form of the purchase of the RECs generated from those projects. And I can answer any questions about that when we get to later in the presentation.
Great. So how did this come about? Well, we know that solar energy is in a huge growth phase right now across the world, across the country, across the state. But we've also noticed that a few amongst us in Washington have sort of been left behind from being able to take advantage of the benefits of what solar energy is bringing to the table. And two big components of that are affordable housing and nonprofit facilities. So we wanted to better understand why that is. So we reached out and did some stakeholder interviews, and we kind of came up with a few key reasons. One of those is that these organizations sometimes will lack access to capital or have the cash available to fund construction for the solar system. In Seattle, the simple payback period on solar can be a bit long. We don't live in the sunniest place, unfortunately. A lot of people also said that grants and government funding opportunities can be too administratively burdensome. And then another one is that nonprofits, either facilities or affordable housing providers, don't have a tax appetite and they cannot take advantage of the investment tax credit. We have for-profit affordable housing developers in Washington that we've spoken to, and they've actually been much higher on the uptake of solar energy, and that is because they can, take advantage of the 26% ITC on solar energy, which helps with, needing possibly to take out a smaller loan, and also helps with the simple payback period. So when we sort of finished with that information gathering process, we kind of realized that both the Housing Finance Commission and Seattle City Light each had sort of a piece of the puzzle. The Sustainable Energy Trust and the Commission had this lending product that could provide, a low cost of capital to provide funding to construct a solar energy system. But because of the capacity factor of solar in Seattle, it just didn't pencil still, even with these favorable terms. And then Seattle City Light had their REC purchase program, but that money sort of only flowed after the system is operational. So it didn't help with the construction. So alone, we were sort of stranded, but hopefully together, we work really well and we can, help bridge these hurdles that we found. So we'll get into how this model specifically works now.
Yeah, so we decided to work together. We realized that we were having similar struggles and thought that collaboration would help. So the model kind of starts with a set loan. If you wanted to take one of those out, you could use that to offset the initial costs of installing solar. Eli can get into the details a little bit later, but those set loans are going to have a well below market rate interest, so that will help. And then, like you said, once the solar array is operational, then City Light can come in and buy the RECs. So normally a REC purchase is like a trickle payment. You would pay on delivery. So it would be just a few RECs per year, especially for rooftop solar, which are going to generate fewer. And it would be at a rate that wouldn't help these types of installations. So what we're doing is we are doing a lump sum payment when the project is verified to be operational. We will pay in advance for all the RECs that will be generated in the first 5 years of project operation. And because we can't know exactly what the unit price will be for those, because we don't know exactly how many are going to be generated, we pay per kilowatt installed. So that's a payment of $1,500 per kilowatt installed. And that's you can take that payment and you can pay down the principal of the set loan. We're estimating that it'll be like 55 to 60% of the total project cost that you can pay down that principal. And that will bring your monthly payments for the debt service down below the value of net metering in the first year, which we think is a great deal. And Eli will get into that a little bit later. And so then once that loan is fully repaid at the end of the loan term, you're going to be just enjoying the full benefit of that net metering, which is substantial for projects of the size that we're looking for.
Great. So one thing that you can also take advantage of in Seattle through Seattle City Light is on-bill repayment. And this is something that we're really hoping will help and ease that concern about taking out a loan or sort of working with two agencies being like administratively burdensome, is that you can actually repay the loan through your Seattle City Light electricity bill. So this is super convenient. So there'll be a sort of line item on your bill, that there always is for your electricity usage and how much that cost. And then there would be a new line item for the loan debt service, so the principal and interest on the loan. And a great thing about this too is that ideally you could sort of track and see as your bill drops from the solar energy, and then you see the loan repayment, and then you look at that, and then maybe you look at the year prior, and you could see that, oh, this new number is lower than last year, and it includes, paying down a loan. So that could be super exciting. Some organizations, you would need to talk with your accountant about this, but can actually record a loan that's paid via on-bill repayment as an expense on your profit and loss statement, basically as a utility expense, and not as a liability on your balance sheet. So that can be really appealing to some organizations that are reluctant to show debt on the balance sheet. Again, that's something that you would need to talk to your accountant about specifically, but is another exciting opportunity with on-bill. So super simple way to pay back the loan and can have other great benefits as well.
Yeah, so that was something that we really worked together on. We tried to model it out so that the REC payment could really make you break even immediately. So we really worked together to set that payment level at a rate that would bring those monthly payments, at least on an annualized basis, down below the value of the net metering immediately. We wanted to generate cash flow from the start, because we recognize that that's a priority for service providers. We want to especially note that we did not count the ITC toward the financing in our model. We did not consider it. It's not one of the inputs because we recognize that most of you are going to be nonprofits. That's what our eligibility is for this first round in particular. So you don't have a tax appetite for the ITC, which would mean bringing in a tax equity investor, which could really complicate the process. It can be really challenging, can add expense and time to the project. We don't exclude the ITC, however, if you want to do that, or if you have a pre-existing mechanism in place to capture that ITC, you're more than welcome to do so. And that's just an additional financing mechanism that you have available to you. I just want to note that the ITC was extended. It is going to be 26% through 2021, and then it'll start to decline after that.
Great. So here is a really simple pro forma that was generated just to sort of show what this could look like for your organization. So this is just a theoretical 40 kilowatt solar system in Seattle. It was installed at $2.70 a watt. And we spoke with a lot of solar installers in Seattle, and this seems to be the high end currently. So we really expect that you would be able to purchase at a lower and purchase and install at a lower price than this. But for the sake of the model, we did want to be conservative. So we went on the high end number of what we were hearing in Seattle as the going rate. We basically developed this using the National Renewable Energy Laboratory's CREST tool, which is really great because it allows you to dial in specific figures. So we could sort of put in the capacity factor of solar systems in Seattle. We could use Seattle City Light's current electricity rates. We could use their projected escalation on the electricity rates. And that really basically allowed us to mess with all the mechanics to figure out what is the optimal sort of loan term and then what is the optimal REC purchase price that could get these systems to cash flow. So this is just a simple pro forma that shows the utility savings you would see under revenue. We wanted to just add in a small figure for operating expenses, even though, solar generally doesn't have any operating expenses, especially early, just sending someone out there to maybe wipe down the panels every now and then. So you could shift that over into the reserves as well. But again, just to add a little conservative number in there for fun. And then you can see the debt service payments on a sustainable energy trust loan. So I think another key thing about this is that the set loans do not start amortizing until that REC buy down. So you would take out the loan. It basically is construction funding and permanent funding all in one. You would take out the set loan. It would fund construction. You wouldn't be paying any principal or interest on the loan until the panels are operational and Seattle City Light has bought down a substantial portion of the debt, which is awesome. And then that's where you get to the point here where you can see that over the course of a year, even from the first year, there's some cash flow from these panels. And then if you drop down to year 10, which is the term length limit of a set loan, the loan has been fully paid off. And then as Sherry was sitting on the previous slide, you're fully realizing the net metering benefits of this solar system because you now own it outright. So yes, this is just a simple model, and we're happy to work with your organization specifically on your specifics so we could generate, what we think the pro forma would look like specifically for your organization. But we just kind of wanted to show a very simplified one here that, just demonstrated that, yes, these systems through this partnership and the terms that we set can cash flow. So thank you to the National Renewable Energy Laboratory for that.
Yeah, so here's where I wanted to just chime in and discuss some of the eligibility for this. This is for the first solicitation, the 2021 solicitation. As Eli mentioned before, this is our first round. So we're really in a learning phase, trying to figure out what works. But what we have found with Green Up funding rounds in the past is that as much as we want to target affordable housing providers for these grants, they are not able to compete against organizations like schools and parks. Those are just bond funded organizations with it's different with bigger projects generally. So this first round is a carve out for these affordable housing and low income service providers. It's a dedicated bucket for providers like yourselves. So that's what we're doing. You must be public or nonprofit. We can't fund a for-profit. Just contracting difficulties from a public entity, but public or nonprofits are very easy to contract with. And for projects, we're looking for new solar. And that means that we're looking for the solar permit application to start or the project to be finished in the 2021 calendar year. That's just for this first round. We are launching a next round in September for 2022 projects. We're looking for projects that are within Seattle City Light service area. The Green Up participants have really indicated a strong preference for solar projects that are as local as possible. So that's what we're going for. And we really want to be able to tell the Green Up participants that they're purchasing RECs from projects located on the same grid as their account, their meter. Because of the volume of the Green Up portfolio that I mentioned before, the 100,000 megawatt hours a year, we're really looking for cost-effective projects that are between 30 and 100 kilowatts. That 30 is the minimum, and the 100 is the maximum because that's the net metering cap that we have right now under law. And we're looking for projects that are located on commercial or multifamily facilities. So those are facilities with bigger roofs and higher loads generally. The utility account must be maintained by the applicant or the applicant's proxy organization. That excludes buildings where there are multiple tenants or the utility account is maintained by a property management company or like a landlord, something like that. And it's important to note that the Green Up eligibility is tighter and stricter than the set loan eligibility. So all projects that meet the Green Up eligibility also will meet the set loan eligibility. So we're really hoping for some projects that take advantage of both. So I wanted to give you some examples of what would be like a great site for the program, what we're looking for. Ideally, we want to bring in retrofits. So an existing building is great. New construction is good too, but it has less of an opportunity to take advantage of the SET program, and they have longer timelines. So we're really looking for shorter timelines and existing buildings, retrofits, and rehabs. So you would want to look at your existing inventory to see what's out there, what would have a good roof. A good roof is something that has more than 10 years to the next replacement, at least 3,000 square feet of usable space. You can expect that solar on average requires about 100 square feet per kilowatt installed. So if you have a 30 kilowatt minimum for the program, we're looking for at least 3,000 square feet. And you need a roof that's structurally sound to support the weight of both the equipment and any mounting hardware that you need, especially ballasting if you're going in that direction. We want good exposure on a roof. If you're going to take the time and trouble and money to install solar, you want to make sure to maximize its production potential. So a roof that is south-facing or flat is great. You would want to look at whether it's shaded by trees or neighboring buildings. So maximize the sun on there. And I should have taken out this last bullet. I thought I did, but yes, again, structurally sound to support the weight. And then we're really looking for an installation that can take advantage of the net metering potential. So we don't want those generated kilowatt hours to go to waste. Net metering credits are annualized and can never be turned into cash. So we want to make sure that they're actually being used by the meter. So you're looking for at least 30,000 kilowatt hours a year on a single meter. That means for multifamily buildings in particular, we can't share those kilowatt hours right now with the residential unit. So you would be looking at the house meter and the load on that house meter getting up to at least 30,000 kilowatt hours a year. So generally that's going to be a medium-sized commercial building or larger, and again, at least 3,000 square feet of usable space. So yeah.
Great. Well, the next and last step is how to apply. So if this is something you're interested in, there's sort of two avenues to start. You could either reach out to Sherry or you could reach out to myself. The specific process for a set loan is to shoot me an email. We can talk about the project, see if it meets the eligibility. And if it looks like it does, I can send you an application for a set loan. And the typical timeline from application submittal to first loan disbursement is about 2 months. But we can try to expedite if we need to, or if if we're working on a slower time frame, that's also fine. And so that is how the SET program works.
Yeah, and Green Up, again, it always comes in the form of a rec purchase. So there are some obligations there. You need to keep the system operational for at least 5 years because we're buying the recs for at least 5 years. And you would need to abide by the communications guidelines, which means that you cannot claim to be solar powered or using renewable energy, because when you sell the recs, you're selling the right to make that claim to the Green Up participants. Other than that, it's pretty good. I've contracted with third-party rec administrators, so these projects don't have to handle that rec registration and regenerator registration or administration on their own behalf. I recognize that that is administratively burdensome and something that these providers may not have the personnel or expertise to take on. So we're doing that ourselves. Could you go back? Sorry. So if you meet all the eligibility requirements that are described on the link that Carrie sent out, you can just go ahead and submit an application. The application is open now, and it's going to stay open until March 31st or until the funding is exhausted, whichever comes first. I'm accepting applications on a first come, first served basis. So that involves just verifying that they are complete and eligible, and then providing a letter of intent. So that letter of intent is Seattle City Light intends to finance this project at the rate described, the project as described, and the letter of intent is valid for 12 months, so that you would have to get that permit application in for contracting before the end of the 12-month period that the letter is valid. I said here on the thing that the typical timeline for application submittal to selection is 2 to 3 weeks. That can really vary. I would say 2 to 3, maybe a month is probably more typical. So that was a little preliminary estimate.